Guys, in this video, we're going to look at using Blender to create a monitor, a computer monitor. So one of the first things you might want to do is look at some reference images of computer monitors. I did a search on the internet and brought up these results. And you can see that monitors have all sorts of different stands. The stand that I'm going to make is actually one I saw earlier on which had 4 legs to it. I can't see an example here. I can see some stands which have 2 legs. So the one we're going to do is kind of similar, but with 4 legs going out in each direction. But once you get the hang of it, of course, you could try some of these other types of monitor stands and try to model those. Okay, so I go back to Blender, and the first thing I've got to do is delete this default cube. So I click on the cube, and then I press X, choose delete. Now I'm going to add a cylinder. So I go to Mesh and Cylinder. Now this is where we have to use a little bit of editing. So I'm going to switch to edit mode. And then I'm going to choose the third icon along, which is face select. Okay. You can also choose face select by pressing key number 3 on the number keys at the top of the keyboard. Okay. So pressing key number 3 will have the same effect, or click on the icon up here. Now everything is selected on my cylinder. So I want to deselect everything by pressing A twice quickly. So tap the A key twice quickly, and that will deselect everything. Now I'm going to start selecting faces, and I'm going to be careful to select faces which line up with the axes. So if we look here, we've got this red line, which is the x-axis, and I'm going to select the 2 faces. Now I selected multiple faces by holding down the shift key as I press the left mouse button. So if you don't hold down the shift key, then it's just going to select the one face that you click on. But if I hold down the shift key, 2 faces either side of the red line, and I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to select the 2 faces either side of the green line. Is so that we can pull these parts out to make the legs of our monitor stand. So we pull them out by pressing the S key to scale, and if I move this at the moment, it does pull out those sides of the circle, but it actually pulls them out in all directions, and I don't want to do that. I only want to pull them out on the X and Y axes, which are the green and red lines. I don't want to pull them out on the Z axis. So the way that I stop it moving on the Z axis is hold down the shift. So you hold down the shift key and press Z, and when you pull it out now, it will not increase the Z axis size of those legs. So I'll pull it out to about there and click the left mouse button. Okay, now once we've got our legs coming out like that, the next step is I want to shrink it on the Z axis. So I press F and then Z, scale on the Z axis, and I'm just going to flatten them down like that to make them much thinner at the ends. Now I'm going to press G, Z, and I'm going to move them down so that they are flat on the ground. Now, to make that really accurate, I'm going to actually go around to the front view, press G, to make sure that I get it exactly where I want it, so that the base of the monitor looks flat. That looks okay. Now, the last step, this is an option of this leg. Press the S, then choose the X axis and just scale it in to make that leg a bit thinner. And I can do that over here as well. Now what I'm actually going to do is, scaling it by hand, I'm going to scale it by number. So I'll press F, will allow me to do exactly SX 0.1. Legs are on the y-axis, so I'm going to type Okay, so here we've got a stand for our monitor. It's a little bit high maybe, so maybe I'll just click on the top and then scale, just flatten it down. So obviously this is totally up to you, how you want your monitor to look. I think that is closer to how I would like it to look. Okay, now we've actually got something that I wasn't expecting here because I was hoping top and I haven't. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to add another cylinder. So I'll go back to object mode and then I'll go to add and pick another cylinder. Scale that to make it a bit smaller. Scale it on the Z-axis to make it longer. That's going to be the stand for my monitor. Now again, I probably want it to be a bit shorter than that. Okay, I think that will do. Okay, now I want to create the screen of my monitor. So add, mesh, cube, and then same as before, I'm pressing the S. Now, if I pull it out, it makes the cube bigger, but I don't want it to move on the red axis, which is the X axis. So I'm going to press and pull it out to create a screen. Now I want it to be a bit thinner, so I'll make it a bit thinner. I want it to be a bit wider, so I'll press F out to be a wider screen. And I'm going to use G to move it around the position I want it to be in. G and then the X, Y, and Z commands aligned with one of the axes. Let's make it down a little bit. There we go. That's looking okay. Now I select my monitor and change to edit mode, and I want to put a screen on this monitor. So the way that I can do that is, again, I'm using face select here, and I'll click on the front of the monitor. Then I press the I key, which means inset. And if I pull the mouse, you can see that it's actually creating a new rectangle inside the rectangle of the monitor. That's what our screen is going to be. Now I'll press the I key again to create another rectangle. This time I'm not going to make it any smaller, so I can just press the right mouse button to stop cancel changing the size. But instead, what I'm going to do is press the G and then the X. Move the screen back a little bit to create an impression of depth. Oh, I need to do that again. So I'll click the left mouse button this time. G. There we go, and that gives me a little border around the edge of the screen. It's very subtle, but putting that little border in gives the screen more of a three-dimensional feel. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to a fully rendered view. So we can see the monitor, and there's actually a light around the back of it. So let's move that light around a bit, put it in a more interesting position. Okay. Now I'm going to put some material on my monitor. So I'll click on the stand first of all. Make a new material, and let's make the stand just a very dark grey. Maybe something like that. Now I prefer to use dark grey instead of black, just because black tends to, it doesn't reflect any light, and there are actually very few things in the world that don't reflect any light at all. So using grey tends to look a bit better. Now I'm going to hold down Shift and click on and that will also copy the colour across to the stand. Now I do the same with the monitor, so I'll click on the monitor and press Ctrl and J, join them together, and now our whole monitor is one object and it all has the same colour. Okay, now the last thing I want to do is I actually want to put something on the screen. So I searched for a Windows desktop earlier on, and maybe I'll pick this one. So we've got a like a screenshot of a Windows desktop here, and I'm just going to save that to my desktop so that I can use it in Blender. Let's put it in my downloads folder. And save. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that image onto my monitor screen. So the way I do that is, first of all, I change to edit mode. Now I use Face Select and I click on my monitor screen here. Now I go to the UV editing option. Now in the UV editing option, you'll see there's an icon here, open. And I'm going to go to my downloads folder and open the picture which I saved earlier on. So there it is, Windows 10 desktop. Now, if it's too big, I can scroll, zoom in and out by just moving the scroll wheel on the mouse. Now, over here, I'm going to click on the Material tab. And I'm going to make a new material by clicking plus. Now, this material, I'll click New to make a new material. And then where it says base color, you'll notice there's a little dot next to it. I'm going to choose image texture. When I choose image texture, I get an option here of which image to use. I'll click on this icon at the side and pick the image which I chose earlier. Okay, now I'm not seeing the image yet, so I'm just going to try to work out why. Because I'm not actually on image display mode. So click on that bubble over here. Still not seeing an image. What else might I have done wrong? I'll tell you why. I have to click the assign button. What an idiot. Okay, so I click the assign button, and now I've got my image on the screen. Now the image is actually, that is correct, isn't it? Let's just go back to layout view. And there's my image on the screen. And I think that actually looks okay. Now, in real life, monitor screens emit light. So I'm going to go over to the material setting down here. And I'm going to go down to the option which says emission. Now this is where we can choose for something to emit light. So first of all, I choose the color of the light, which is going to be white. And I'm going to make the emission strength maybe 0.1. I haven't actually experimented with this, but that looks okay. I don't want it to emit too much light, but let's just test that out. Now, to see how it would look if you rendered it, I'm going to click on this camera icon and change to Cycles Render. And I don't think that looks too bad. Okay, so obviously there are loads of ways in which you can make this model more accurate. This is just a very simple model. It doesn't have any buttons. The stand is very simple. And For example, the monitor is actually not connected to the stand completely because there's a bit of a gap between them. So there are loads of ways in which you can improve this model. But hopefully, guys, that gives you a basic tutorial on how to create a model of a computer monitor.